Please welcome Lily Berman.
So I'm barreling through the Nevada wilderness. It's the middle of the night, and I'm by myself with no phone, and everyone that I love is hours and hours away. And sitting beside me is a truck driver that I've just met. This is not how I intended to arrive at my best friend's wedding. So when we were little, she was always the fun, gregarious, not very into going to school one, and I was the extremely into going to school, type A, neurotic type one. But our lives kind of switched directions after I left for college. She settled down with this guy. They were going to get married, and she was going to move into the suburb where we grew up. And I was living on a school bus, picking up trash across America. And so when she asked me to be in her wedding, I was so stoked that I still had that place in her life years after I moved away. And so I said, I'm going to make it to your wedding. And so I booked a Greyhound trip from where I thought we were going to be on the road, and I was ready to go until a week before I left, my cell phone met its fateful demise in the watery grave of communal laundry. So I had no phone, and I was like, it's okay. I have, midnight departure. I'll get dropped off. It's going to be fine. And so my friend dropped me off, and I'm standing at the Greyhound stop, which is really a glorified truck stop, and 11:30 comes and goes, and midnight comes and goes, and 12:30. And the woman who works there says, honey, just put your head down. When he gets here, he'll wake you up. It'll be fine. And so I put my head down, and I'm napping, and I hear this voice say, are you waiting on a Greyhound? And I said, yeah, and I look up expecting to see the Greyhound driver, but instead it's just this guy holding a laundry bag. And I realize, he's a truck driver. And so we're making conversation. I'm waiting on my bus, and he says, where are you going? And I say, Los Angeles. And he says, oh, I'm going to Los Angeles too. I know it's kind of weird, but I can give you a ride. And in my head, I thought, this is going to be a really good story one day. I have the nerve to get in this truck, and so I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it, because, being the type of person that would do that type of thing. And then I'm in the truck, and I realize that I'm in the truck, and we're barreling through the Nevada wilderness on our way to Los Angeles, and no one knows where I am, and the closest person I love is hours away. And that's when he starts saying things like, you're really beautiful. I bet people try to ask you out of clubs all the time. And you're single, right? And I'm like, no. I was, but no, absolutely not. Not single, boyfriend, love. It's great. And we get to Las Vegas, and then he says, they have to sleep. They're not allowed to just drive forever. And so he's like, you know what? I have to take a break. Do you want to cuddle? And I'm like, thinking, I have no phone. I'm at a truck stop in Vegas, which is slightly closer to where I need to be, but nowhere near my best friend's wedding, which I promised I was going to be at. And so I said, no, thank you, and sort of huddled on the top bunk and didn't really sleep because it was freezing, and, he wasn't going to share his blanket because he wanted to cuddle. And so the morning comes, and I go inside, and I take a deep breath, and I come back out, and I ask him to use his cell phone, and I call my friend, and I say, so I know I'm supposed to arrive now, but I'm in Vegas with this truck driver. And she's like, oh, okay. Which is not the reaction that I expected after the night like that. And so she was like, yeah, well, let me know when you're close. I'll come get you. And I'm like, okay, great. So, and then he says, well, my truck is illegally aligned, so I can't go into California until nighttime because I can't. So he's like, well, you have two choices. You can take a cab ride into Vegas, which is going to be like $60, or don't do this, but I can call over the truck driver radio and see if someone else is going to Los Angeles. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that. It's going to be such a good story, right? So he calls over the radio, and this guy's like, single female driver going to Los Angeles. And he's like, some guy's like, yeah, red cab, I'm leaving right now. And so I'm like, yeah, here we go, adventure. And this guy, the first truck driver's like, don't do it. Chasing me over, trying to size the other guy up. And the guy reaches out his hand. He's like, hi, nice to meet you. I'm Billy. So Billy and Lily, which is pretty cute. He's like, do you like Westerns? I'm like, I guess. So we listened to this Western audiobook sort of in silence for hours. And I'm looking at him, and he's like, it's not bad. It's a fine enough audiobook. He's a little, he's in his 40s. And he's asked me, he offers me his craisins. And so I take a craisin, and we bond over that. And, so he starts telling me his story. He was a sniper in Vietnam. And he came back, was trained killer, really good at it, came back, and he was a temporary police officer for the city of Los Angeles when the riots happened. So he went from being someone who shot at people very well to being someone who was shot at and not allowed to shoot back. And that really messed him up. So he went into Yosemite and spent years sort of in the woods by himself doing temporary work. And, he turned out to be a really good guy. And so we're getting close, and I realize as we're getting closer that a truck driver is not going to drive into Los Angeles during rush hour. because at this point it's dinner time the next day. And so we ordered dinner at the truck stop, and I go to the bathroom. I take a second to just like cry because I have no sleep, and I put myself in this this reckless nerve circumstance, and here I am an hour away from my friend. Meanwhile, while I was in the bathroom, he called this woman named Sassy, who drives the local drivers around. Her name is really Sassy. And she is going to drive me to the nearest Greyhound station, where I took the Greyhound into Los Angeles, and he'd picked up the tab for my dinner too. So I think very often women are told that we're not allowed to be alone, and that men are out and people are out to get us, and we can't really live full, connected lives because we have to always be afraid. And whether you call it nerve or whether you call it recklessness, I've had some really excruciatingly beautiful experiences with people that I just met because I put myself in them, and this one turned out well, and I had a good story to tell. Thank you.
Lily Berman.